The season starts in less than 2 weeks, and to prepare for the season starting, the Browns practice at Cleveland Browns Stadium for the first time in a very long time. They had the new uniforms on in full force. They were in the stadium. They had some fake crowd noise pumped in to give us a preview of what that's going to sound like. And they had full tackling drills. So for about 15 minutes today, NFL football was back. So what happened during those 15 minutes? Well, let's talk about it. Real quick before this video starts, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload a ton of Browns content, a ton of football content coming, because the season is so close. We can taste it, we can smell it, we can hear it just down the way. So make sure you're subscribed and click that notification bell so you don't miss a single thing. So day 13 of Browns camp was an interesting day. Now, some clerical notes. There was no Myles Garrett. They did that to just be careful. Stefanski said, quote, "It was an abundance of caution." I think they did it to get a deeper look at Porter Gustin and Chad Thomas for that fourth defensive end role, since they know exactly what they're probably going to get out of Myles Garrett and what they're relying on him to get. No B.J. Goodson. He was out for personal reasons. And then other than that, you had guys like David Njoku back in team practices. Same thing with Damian Ratley. So a lot of guys back and healthy. So let's see how this defense did in the first part of this practice. So I would say in the first part of this practice, when they were doing red zone drills, the most important thing and the main thing that I saw was the defensive line stepping up. And this has been a consistent thing over the last few days. And it's been the same consistent names. Porter Gustin has been somebody who has looked good. I like him at that number 4 edge position. He reminds me a lot of Sam Hubbard. I don't think he's as good as Sam Hubbard, but he has a lot of a similar skill set to Sam Hubbard. The motor, the good speed around the edge, the ability to dip a little bit. Like, those are all things that Sam Hubbard has that I like to see in Porter Gustin. So I think he's going to be a nice option there at the number 4 defensive end role when you rotate in Myles. And Jordan Elliott has come into his own with the second team at least. He has made some stops. He's made some stuffs here and there. He's had a decent camp. I don't know if he's ready to be in the starting rotation yet, but he might see some playing time during the season because he's put up a decent body of work during camp. The defense as a whole has been doing a good job on the stretch, and that leads me to believe that this defense's Achilles heel might not just specifically be just the run. It's only going to be the inside run. They seem to be athletic enough and disciplined enough to get to the edges when they do a stretch. It's just when you attack the inside of that defensive line that there are some problems. Speaking of the inside of the defensive line, Sheldon Richardson actually did have a good day. He had a nice little stuff here at the beginning portion of this practice. So good things out of the defense. You saw some guys making plays, specifically on the defensive line. Let's talk about what we saw from the offense from the first part of this practice. The first team offense started out practice today against the first team defense in a red zone drill. And they started out on fire, quite frankly. Austin Hooper had this amazing catch for a touchdown. OBJ and Baker Mayfield started off the entire practice with this beautiful combination here with a good ball, good catch, way to get the feet in for Odell. They looked really crisp at the beginning of this practice. They looked really solid. Like, they've been operating in that end zone at a pretty decent clip. These red zone drills have been where the offense has looked at its most comfortable throughout all the different periods that they do throughout camp, and it continued today. Austin Seibert, they had kind of a drill where they would rush the team off the field and then bring Austin Seibert on the field. That piqued my interest because a lot of people's excuses for Austin Seibert and a lot of Austin Seibert's own reasoning from his mouth about why he missed so many extra points last year and why he wasn't as consistent in that area is because he wasn't used to rushing onto the field and rushing off the field. Well, they did that, and he went, 2 for 3, I believe. He went 2 for 3. He missed his first field goal, reminiscent of the game against Tennessee where he missed his first extra point. So I hope he's better in that area. I don't want to complain about the kicker during the regular season. I don't want to think about the freaking kicker during the regular season, but he still continues to do things that, make me less than confident at his ability to do what he needs to do and not be a nuisance come the season. That's all you want your kicker to be. Not be somebody rememberable. Not be a nuisance. Unless you're Phil Dawson, I don't want to know that you exist as a kicker. And, we'll see what happens there with Austin Seibert. Went 2 for 3, missed on a 50-yarder, but made the other 2. They were shorter field goals. But, hey, went 2 for 3, missed the first one on the rush the ball drill. So that was a little bit concerning there. But all in all, they start off practice good, especially the first team. The first team start off practice good against the first team defense, which is a little bit interesting because of what happened later on in practice. But nonetheless, they start off practice good. The end zone drills are looking good. And then the Browns did something interesting. They put 15 minutes on the game clock, and they essentially had themselves a full quarter of actual football. Of course, you can't tackle the quarterbacks, but everything else was full go, 100% live. And that's where we got some interesting information. All right, so I'm going to go over this by drive. So the first drive was the second team against the first team defense. And the second team ran right through this first team defense. And out, no Myles Garrett, no BJ Goodson, but ran straight through this this first team defense like butter. You had David Njoku wide open here. Case Keenum found him. I think a similar play happened like that. Like that exact play happened, but it was Rashard Higgins in the first drive against Tennessee. I might have the player wrong, but I know for a fact that a very similar play was that open against Tennessee in the first drive. This is an interesting note there. And then Keenum was able to get the ball into the end zone with a nice Damian Ratley touchdown. Yeah, David Njoku, Damian Ratley, two guys who have disappeared for the most part in camp, have been in the back end of their respective competitions. David Njoku for tight end 2 and Damian Ratley for that third wide receiver role. Both had good days today. Both desperately needed those good days because David Njoku, I don't know what his role is going to be. I don't know if they're going to cut him because they committed to him a little bit. But Damian Ratley was for sure on the bubble. So it was big that he had a good day today. The Browns' first team went out there. There was nothing really to note here. They sputtered out. They had a false start, incomplete pass. Not the greatest first drive in the world here, and they went 3 and out. Now, there are going to be people who are concerned about that. I'm not really as concerned because, yeah, it was against the second-team defense, but when they were in red zone drills against the first-team defense, they absolutely shredded that first-team defense. It makes me question the first-team defense and the level that they're executing on more than anything, that not only the first team, when they went up against the first-team defense, shredded them, but the second team shredded the first-team defense. It kind of makes me wonder, is there a problem with the communication in that first-team defense that doesn't exist with the other defenses, which is a concern. That's a massive concern. I hope that doesn't become a consistent issue. Second team out there again, and then you had the first-team defense kind of pick up a little bit here because you had this nice tackle by Sione Takitaki in space. Is more or less what you want to see out of Takitaki. You know what he can do in the box. You just worry about him in space. And the more he's out there, the more he kind of impresses in that area. Then D'Ernest Johnson had himself a nice drive here because I think D'Ernest Johnson is a sleeper to be the number 3 running back on this team and actually make the team and see some playing time. Now, I don't know if he can return kicks like Dontrell Hilliard can, but if he can, Hilliard's on the bubble. Higgins has looked better as of late. He's had a better second week of camp, much more than his first week, so that's a nice thing to see from Higgins as well. Peoples-Jones showed up today, which is nice to see. Big old dude, man. I really hope they can find something to get him the ball during the season in some special packages because he seems like somebody who'd be interested in get the ball in the hands of. Man, Case Keenum looked pretty sharp today. He had some balls that he made that were just like wide open, but he made some decent throws, looked pretty composed. He looked like the veteran that you want him to be, the steady hand, much, much better than what Drew Stanton, who was here last year. So the Browns are in a much better position when it comes to backup than last year. So that's a great thing to do. And then D'Ernest Johnson got the touchdown here on this drive. And I think what this drive showed was that the running back out the backfield is going to be a really important receiver in this offense because they utilize that person a lot during these kind of scrimmage periods. So keep an eye out for that, because he did that a lot in Minnesota. He gave Dalvin Cook a lot of receptions out the backfield. I didn't know whether that would continue to carry on here in Cleveland, because they have the personnel, but you have so many other receivers of the football that you can get the ball to that I didn't know if they would find that necessary. But it seems like that's something they're going to use at least in the early parts of the season while the offense is still trying to install everything else. So that's an interesting note that I saw by watching the offense today during these periods. And then to that point, even on the first team, Baker Mayfield was making a lot of completions to his running backs. Andy Janovich was a part of that with the 10-yard reception. So I think the tight ends and the running backs out the backfield receiving are going to be hugely important to this offense at the beginning portion of the season. Obviously, the run game is going to be an important factor, but when you're talking about the passing game, I think that's where the team is built and most comfortable at the beginning of this season, is going to be with those tight ends and with those running backs out the backfield as receivers. And then they're going to try to hit Odell. They're going to try to hit Jarvis. They're going to try to get them. And then they're going to install this offense more and more as the weeks goes on. And then you'll see things from those guys later on in the season. That's what I think is going to happen. But David Njoku, speaking of tight ends, had a much needed good day. A desperately needed good day, because he's been getting his butt whipped in this competition by Harrison Bryant. Today, he showed some fight. He showed some grit. He had a really solid day of practice. He had a couple of plays. I think he had like 3 receptions for almost 80 yards. So good day by David Njoku. He needed a day like this. But again, David Njoku's still on the list of guys who need to stack up good days. And today was a good day. I don't know what he's going to do for the next few days, but I hope he stacks up good days, because if he doesn't, it's still not going to be much of a competition between him and Harrison Bryant. And by the way, Harrison Bryant has taken that second tight end role fully now. Like, he was primarily out there with the ones when Austin Hooper wasn't out there. So that spot is Harrison Bryant's right now. One note I've seen throughout all of camp, 2 weeks in a row, they've tried all these end arounds. They hardly ever work. They don't need to run these end arounds during the season. I don't know why they're running them so much in practice, but I hope they don't run these end arounds during the season, because it's not like the concept of end arounds are bad. I think they work, but the execution of these end arounds must be terrible, because the Browns are stopping them every single time. Unless the Browns are the best end around defending team in the NFL, the way these end arounds have not been working in practice is a dead giveaway that they should not ever try these in a game, because they don't work. They've never worked. Like, not once have they practiced an end around and something big's happened. It's not happened. In 2.5 weeks of practice, it hasn't happened. So please, please take that as a sign. And then Baker Mayfield in his last possession, he started at like the 10-yard line. It was kind of contrived the last 2 possessions, quite honestly. Like, they were running a full game before then, and then they were like, stop the game, put him at the 10-yard line. Case Keenum went 3 and out, I believe, in that last drive. And Baker Mayfield threw an interception, a terrible interception. He was trying to hit Peoples-Jones on like a comeback route, but either Peoples-Jones didn't run the right route or Baker just threw a bad ball. Either are completely believable that happened there. So not a great way to end the practice, but all in all, a good day. And my main takeaways, the things that I saw the most interesting from this practice, is that defensively, they're stopping the stretch runs and they're getting to the edges. So I think they won't have a problem there. I think their problems are going to be on the inside again. I don't think that's avoidable. Maybe B.J. Goodson comes back and clears everything up, but outside of that, I don't see there being much hope for that being a different thing than it was last year. Nick Chubb is going to be really good. Nick Chubb is going to be what this offense is going to be powered by at the beginning of the season, and they're going to do a lot of screens. Running back screens are going to be a huge part of this offense at the beginning of it. If you're expecting Odell and Jarvis to get a ton of touches early on in the season, I would lower that expectation. I think Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to get a ton of touches. Even guys like Andy Janovich and Austin Hooper and even Harrison Bryant coming out of the fullback position, those are going to be guys who are going to get a ton of touches during the beginning parts of this season. Are they going to be a team that can play from behind early? I don't think so. I think they're going to have a hard time playing from behind, which worries me because I don't know what to think of this defense. The first team got shredded by both the first team offense and the second team offense. It's not a good sign. It's really not. Now, B.J. Goodson and Myles Garrett weren't there, and Myles Garrett certainly makes up for a lot of bad personnel decisions, but we'll see how far that goes against an offense like Baltimore in a few weeks. Either way, I think today was a good day of practice. I think they got a lot of quality work in, and I think you saw some good things from the offense. The defense is what I would worry about, specifically that first team defense. There seems to be some kind of issue with execution on that defense because it doesn't seem to exist with the other teams on this defense. So something's wrong there. Something needs to get worked out. Maybe BJ Goodson not being there, him being the regular green dot for that first unit is a part of that problem. And hopefully that won't be consistent. But from what I saw today, there seems to be an issue on that first team defense. The offenses look fine. You didn't get the greatest practice in the world from Baker Mayfield. Case Keenum had a sharp day, but all in all, I see nothing to be that worried about when it comes to this offense. I think they're going to be fine enough on their installation to be able to run the ball and do a lot of stuff to their tight ends early on in the season. And that might be able to get them by for a few games. And hopefully that's what the Browns need. But that's my thoughts on the stadium scrimmage. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.